the Philosopher as an artisan of life and death. Today on Fortitude through Stoicism, and this is my 365-day journey of implementing the ancient philosophy of Stoicism into the life of this modern masculine man. The quote today by Epictetus. Philosophy does not claim to get a person any external possession. To do so would be beyond its field. As wood is to the carpenter, bronze to the sculptor, so our own lives are the proper material in the art of living. So, remember, Epictetus, slave turned educator, was also later put to death by Nero. Nero? One of them. Philosophy is not some idle pursuit appropriate for only academics or the rich. Instead, Ryan Holiday contends it's one of the most essential activities that a human can engage in. So Ryan Holiday is saying, this is Ryan Holiday, he's an author, so again, note the source. He's saying that one of the most essential activities for human beings to engage in is that of philosophy. Well, Henry David Thoreau said, philosophy is to help us solve the problems of life, not just theoretically, like Plato, remember a lot of ideology, but also practically, experience and observation, like Aristotle. This aligns nicely with Cicero's famous line, to philosophize is to learn how to die. So you're reading these quotes, right? We're going through this. And we're not just doing this for fun. I mean, listen, I gotta tell you, doing the Jordan Peterson Academy, I just finished Ancient Philosophy with Dr. James Orr. I now have such a profound understanding, really, in the roots of Stoicism, how it evolved. We're not doing this for fun. I'm not doing this for fun. I'm doing this for a reason. Ryan Holiday contends that we do this, why it may be enjoyable, and help you lighten up a bit. The aim is to help you sculpt and improve your life, right? There's a real tangible benefit we're seeking here. So, and because all of us have just one life and just one death, I talk about that, right? Just one rodeo, man. You get one ride, and it's like 8 seconds, right? In the context of humanity, it's literally an 8-second ride, like a bull. That's why I equate life, man. Most people get on, they hang on as hard as they can, and man, a lot of them get bucked off early. They don't make the full ride. So consider this. We should treat each experience like a sculptor with his chisels, carving until, to paraphrase Michelangelo, we set free an angel in the marble. Some powerful minds all recognize the same thing, and again, this is all about the meditation on the morality, our mortality. We're trying to do this difficult thing, living and dying as best we can. And Ryan says the best way to do that is remember the wise words and the things we've learned and what we've been given. So I'm gonna shift, and I'm gonna now, how do I apply this, right? I was just thinking about this morning on the treadmill. I'm thinking, boy, if anybody ever spends any time around me, they will always see my head buried in one of 2 or 3 different iPad screens. I have such a craving for knowledge, and learning for me has become addictive. Like every time I learn something, I'm like, But I didn't understand this one thing. And so that one thing takes me down a whole rabbit hole. And there's so many rabbit holes to explore. And then you get these amazing perspectives. For example, Dr. James Orr on his perspective of Stoicism. It gave me a completely different mind shift and understanding, because there were some things I was just missing, right? And I had to go all the way back to the beginning to understand the evolution of thought in mankind. Really, Stoicism is really the first time we see humanity in the world, because we're looking at the human as part of a bigger species. Because before that, you were an Athenian, or you were a Persian. You were not really a human. And I know it's hard for us to like kind of wrap our brains around that, but the concept of like, basic human, like medical benefits, like that was kind of unheard of, right? Because again, it was all about the state or the nucleus, and that spawned all the way back from, Plato and Aristotle. Like, how do we define like a unit? And again, you have a family, and then, there's a cluster of families, and that turns into something. It turns into a polis, right? Which is basically a nation. But then to understand the evolution of thought and to really, now I understand Stoicism. So again, do I believe in every component? Do I believe in this one universal power? And I will tell you that it's a very interesting thought, because at the end of the ancient philosophy lesson, they kind of talked about, there's really two different thoughts. I mean, take infinity, for example. Is infinity possible? Or does something basically split down to a base level? And they use an example of a turtle. And I'm not going to go into it, because I'll paraphrase and I'll butcher and I'll confuse everyone. But as I was listening to this, it was so thought-provoking, because you can make a case that no, infinity is impossible, because we are at the end of something that started at some point. Because if infinity did in fact happen, we wouldn't actually have a chance to have this conversation. So the fact that we're able to have this conversation means something must have started. Now, whether there's a series of starts and ends, I mean, we again, we don't know that. And we can only philosophize about it, right? But it's so thought-provoking. And that's what makes humans completely different than all other animals, is our ability to yearn for knowledge of beyond, right? To understand creation, not just survival. Very fascinating, very deep stuff. And again, philosophy does help us, like religion. I mean, again, my understanding of Buddhism was a religion. There is no deity at the center of Buddhism. So it really, I mean, if you really classify it, it's really technically more of a philosophy. But then again, so really is Christianity, because really it's just an evolution of these different thoughts. It's just a different philosophy with a different deity at the center. It's really what it is. It's man's way of trying to explain life and death. That's what philosophy is. And really, that's really what it comes down to in religion. There's a Islamic philosopher, I don't even remember his name, but the reason why Muslims believe so strongly in God is because of his phrasing of philosophy. The infinity example. It must have started at some point, and therefore someone must have more power than us. So the fact that we can conceptually think of this, the beginning or the future, if you will, puts us somewhere between Earth and the heavens. It puts us somewhere between other animals and God. Really deep, really something to consider. And that is why the philosopher is an artisan of life and death. And on that, time to roll.